Well, John, we Grumpy Taxpayers of Greater Victoria have for many years issued what we call candy cane awards. They actually involve real physical candy canes to recognize outstanding or significant, important action on governance issues around the region. I mean, as you know, we're a city now of 460,000 people, residents, one of the largest cities in Canada by any measure. But the governance model that has been around forever, of course, is to divide that city into 13 municipal councils, neighborhood councils. Now, that provides, all federations do, an opportunity for experimentation, replication, or don't look over there, I don't like what they're doing behavior. That's okay. It can be strong. And across this region, over the years, we've recognized like quite significant policy initiatives that we think others might wish to duplicate. And today we're recognizing three. One in the case of a municipality where the impact is largely on the taxpayers of that municipality. One in which the demonstration effect of what they're doing could be quite significant. And the third one is a small municipality that has taken an incredible step to impact the lives of everybody in Greater Victoria who commutes. So we start off with Saanich, and it's a kind of two-edged sword. They have agreed to go ahead with a very necessary project to replace their municipal yards. And it's a big installation, of course. Now, that follows an AAP process, which was attempting to get citizen approval to borrow, I think, up to $170 million. And the opponents of that measure actually succeeded in attracting more than 10% of negative vote, and so it was stopped. Now, we have concerns about the AAP process, but in this case, the citizen spoke. And in reply, of course, the municipal government has scaled back its plans to focus really on the needs of the public works and other departments. I think the emergency operations center will be in there, and that's fine. They responded to the public. In the second case, for demonstration effect, Doug Kobayashi and his council have gone through a process of putting in place, with his leadership and I'm sure mentorship, a performance management system, which is intended to drive the strategic plan for Colwood really into every Colwood employee's job, all through the levels of supervision. I mean, it's very interesting. And I mean, 100 years ago, I took a management course when I was with the federal government, and a fellow by the name of Audrey Daniels in Texas, who is a behavioral organizational guy, very simple system he had. He said, go into any organization, ask anybody how their job is going. Most people will say, oh, it's going pretty well. Ask them the second question, how do you know? And in most organizations, most of the time, most people can't answer the second question. Mm-hmm. Well, under Doug Kobayashi's leadership, this plan has taken months to work with the staff and, refine it and whatnot, but it's intended, among other things, to ensure that every employee can answer that second question and that members of council can be assured that when a strategic plan is struck, it's real. And their political control is therefore perhaps easier to verify. The third award goes to the Central Saanich Council. Now, they did what others in the community, the broader community, failed to do. The Keating flyover, that left turn over the Pat Bay Highway, has been a death trap since the road was first built. In my view, as an amateur highway student laborer for 5 summers, the highway shouldn't have been opened without it. But Ryan Windsor and the council were able to persuade the province and the federal government to put together, I think, $73 million. $73 million to complete the first half of the project. That's the downside. It's only half done. For southbound travelers, no. And one of the reasons that's the case is that in this case, the CRD were asked by Mayor Windsor to come on board and add their muscle to the need for this project, which may have resulted in the provincial government coming up with more funding. I don't know that. The CRD refused. So Central Saanich was on its own, and the 18,000 residents of Central Saanich, I think, had to put up about $2.8 million. Well, that's not an inconsiderable bit of capital. But the most important thing they were able to do was, with that financial commitment, with the leadership from the council, they were able to persuade the two senior levels of government to build what is just about finished now, and we'll all be very happy with that. So leadership, just like Doug Kobayashi, and indeed I would say in the case of Saanich, the council, and in that case the taxpayers who, through the AAP process, expressed what was a legally held opinion. Now, last year, we gave out our first lump of coal with the Candy Cane Awards, and it went deservedly so to the Victoria Council for what I think was a disgraceful approach to debating councillor pay. No matter how you cut it, it was the last minute addition to an agenda. It was based on a study of municipal pay structures in other capital cities in Canada. Okay. The fact that Victoria has 96,000 people and Edmonton has 1 million people might have had an impact on councillors' responsibility, but the consultant that they used actually refused to make a recommendation, having pulled together all that information. Anyway, this year, for the second time, we are awarding a lump of coal to the Capital Regional District. Now, let's keep in mind, we honor every politician and would-be politician across these municipalities and at the CRD board for doing what they're doing in a really hopelessly complex, almost designed to fail system in a modern municipality of 460,000. We've already mentioned what Central Saanich did with the Keating flyover. Well, the CRD has voted to create a regional transportation authority, which will take 3 years, apparently, and a long study to determine what they're going to ask for in terms of urban transportation infrastructure for the city of 460,000 people. We've pointed out that the provincial government has already established, in the case of Greater Vancouver, a mechanism to facilitate the creation of an independently funded transportation authority, which they did years ago, with Vancouver facing an Olympic Games, a World's Fair, and huge world-class events. And the provincial government offered the 22 mayors the hospital portion of regional taxation. That was a modest $320 million. When offered $320 million of free money, the 22 mayors magically agreed to establish what became TransLink, and it's had a huge effect on that city. And then, of course, the province made up the hospital tax full amount. Our question is, why has that offer never been made for the CRD? And every time the province responds to yet another transportation, the Portuguese word is bagunça, or abacaxi, they always say, well, when the 13 mayors agree to something, we'll be happy to support them. They didn't do that in the case of Metro Vancouver. They couldn't. We need a coherent, independently funded, obviously professional transportation authority that can take real decisions. the very fact that the CRD did not support Central Saanich in going after the building of a very essential piece of infrastructure is proof positive that something's got to change. Anyway, that's it for this year, and we are certain that at this time, somewhere in those 13 municipalities, and I mean this most sincerely, there are really creative people who know exactly what has to be done, and they're trying to figure out ways to untie the Gordian knot and get her done. The 3 municipalities that we mentioned today have done that. Others will, and we look forward to that.